To the world, I was just the oil rig guy. To my wife, I was just a paycheck working offshore. But they forgot one thing. I notice every number on a satellite phone bill. The Gulf doesn't care about your problems. That's the first thing you learn out here. I wrapped my hands around the brake handle of the drawworks, feeling the vibration travel up through my shoulders, into my teeth. 12 hours on the floor. 12 hours of fighting the hole, watching the Kelly spin, praying the formation didn't kick. My back was telling me weather was coming, that deep ache in my L4 that never really goes away anymore. 42 years old, and I moved like a man of 60. The floodlights turned the deck into a stage surrounded by nothing, just black water in every direction, 150 miles from shore. The top drive screamed overhead. Mud splattered my coveralls, that familiar mix of bentonite and diesel that never quite washes out. Marcus was working the tongs beside me, his face a mask of grease and exhaustion. Good man, Marcus. Been my roughneck for 6 years now. He caught my eye and drew a finger across his throat. End of shift. I nodded, checked the depth gauge one last time. We'd made good hole today. Earned every cent of my salary this hitch. The walk to the locker room felt longer than usual. My left knee, the one I twisted in 19, was acting up again. I limped past the mud tanks, past the shale shaker, past the rows of drill pipe racked and waiting. The rig hummed around me like a living thing. Strange as it sounds, I'd missed this when I was gone. The simplicity of it. Do the job right or people die. No ambiguity. No, whatever the hell waited for me back home. The locker room smelled like industrial soap and wet towels. I scrubbed my hands with grit paste, watching the black oil swirl down the drain. Some of it never comes off, gets into the creases of your knuckles, stains the calluses. Sarah used to joke that she could track my movements through the house by the grease marks I left behind. Sarah used to joke about a lot of things. Marcus sat on the bench opposite me, lacing up his street boots. He shook his head, that slow way he does when something's eating at him. You hear about Patterson? Night crew? I dried my face with a rough towel. What about him? Got served yesterday. Divorce papers. Came in on the helicopter mail, if you can believe that. His wife couldn't even wait for him to get home. Damn. Poor bastard didn't see it coming. Marcus stood, cracking his neck. Thought she was happy. Thought everything was fine. 20 years, man. 20 years and she just... gone. I tossed the towel in the bin. That's rough. You ever worry about that? Being out here so much? The question hung in the humid air. I thought about Sarah. 20 years of marriage. Emma about to graduate. The house on Magnolia Lane that I'd paid off with 16 years of 2-week rotations. Nah, I said. Sarah and me, we got history. We got something real. Marcus nodded, but his eyes said something else. Something like pity. I ignored it. That kind of drama belonged to other people. The drive home takes 4 hours when traffic cooperates. Highway 90 unspooling through the industrial coast, past the refineries and the chemical plants, then gradually softening into the humid embrace of the bayou. Cypress trees draped in Spanish moss, egrets standing in the shallows. Louisiana in late April, everything green and alive and rotting at the same time. I pulled into the driveway of 847 Magnolia Lane just as the sun was setting. The house sat there looking perfect, the lawn manicured, the flower beds weeded, the shutters freshly painted. Sarah's domain. I'd paid for every brick, every shingle, every goddamn blade of grass, but it had never really felt like mine. I killed the engine and sat there for a minute. This was always the hardest part, the transition. Out on the rig, everything made sense. You followed procedures. You watched the gauges. You did your job or people got hurt. Simple. But home. Home was different. Home was soft and ambiguous and full of conversations I didn't know how to have. Sarah would want to talk about feelings, about connection, about all the things I couldn't give her when I was wrestling pipe in the middle of the Gulf. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Gray stubble, crow's feet from squinting against the sun, eyes that looked about as tired as I felt. "Come on, Jack," I muttered. "Be present. Be a husband." I entered through the kitchen door, the way I always did. The smell hit me first. Garlic, onions, something simmering on the stove. Sarah stood at the island, chopping vegetables. She froze. Just for a second, but I caught it. That micro-hesitation before the smile came on. "You're early," she said, offering her cheek. Not her lips, her cheek. I leaned in, brushed my mouth against her skin. She smelled different. New perfume, something floral and expensive. The kind of thing she never wore for me. Just missed the traffic. I dropped my duffel bag on the floor. The thud sounded too loud in the quiet kitchen. Sarah was wearing new workout gear, one of those expensive brands, the kind that costs more than my work boots. Tight-fitting, showed off her figure in ways I hadn't seen in years. I reached for her waist, wanting to pull her close, wanting something that felt like coming home. She pivoted to the fridge, smooth, natural, like she'd practiced it. "I need to get the butter," she said. "Dinner's almost ready." The rejection was subtle, plausible, but cold. Emma saved dinner. My daughter, 18 years old and glowing with that particular light of someone whose whole life is still ahead of them, dominated the conversation. She talked about her upcoming graduation, about the full scholarship to LSU, about her plans to major in marine biology. "I want to study the Gulf ecosystem," she said, waving her fork for emphasis. "The way the oil platforms create artificial reefs, you know? There's this whole community of life that forms around them." I squeezed her hand across the table. "I'm so proud of you, Em." She beamed. That smile, God, that smile was worth every missed birthday, every holiday spent on the rig, every night I'd slept in a metal bunk instead of my own bed. "Thanks, Dad." This was why I did it. This was why I'd given 16 years to the Gulf, so my daughter could have choices I never had. Sarah seemed distracted. I caught the glow of her phone screen reflecting off her chin, lighting up her face in the dim dining room. She was texting under the table, her thumbs moving in quick little bursts. "Everything okay?" I asked. She looked up, that practice smile again. "Oh, just Charlene, planning the graduation party." Right, I forced myself to focus on Emma, anchoring myself in my daughter's success. But the gnawing feeling in my gut wouldn't quiet down. Tuesday, 11:30 p.m. The house was silent. Sarah had gone to bed an hour ago, her back turned to my side of the mattress before I'd even finished brushing my teeth. I lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to her breathe. Wondering when we'd become strangers who shared a bed. Sleep wouldn't come. My internal clock was still on rig time, up at 5 a.m., working until the sun went down. I gave up around midnight, slipped out of bed, and padded down the hall to the home office. The computer hummed to life in the darkness. Blue light spilled across the desk, illuminating the framed photos on the wall. Me and Sarah on our wedding day, 20 years ago. Emma as a baby, then a toddler, then a gap-toothed first grader. A timeline of a life I'd built with my hands and my sweat and my absence. I logged into the bank portal. This was my ritual every time I came home, checking the accounts, making sure everything was in order. The retirement fund showed $412,000. 16 years of contributions, compounding quietly while I worked. The mortgage was on track. The credit cards were paid off. Numbers didn't lie. Numbers didn't pull away when you tried to hug them. I was about to log off when I remembered the satellite phone bill. We kept the device in the kitchen drawer, a lifeline for hurricane season when the cell towers went down. I'd set up the account years ago and mostly forgot about it. The bill usually showed 0 usage. I pulled up the PDF. The balance due was $247.83. I frowned, scrolling down. Pages of data, call logs, duration, timestamps. Someone had been using the emergency line while I was offshore. I leaned closer to the screen, my driller's eyes scanning for patterns. The dates matched my hitch. Every single call made while I was 150 miles out in the Gulf. The times matched my shifts. 10 p.m., 11:30 p.m., 2 a.m. once. 47 calls in the last 2 months, all to the same number. A local 985 area code. The average duration was 47 minutes. I stared at the screen. This wasn't a wrong number. This wasn't a pocket dial. This was a relationship. Someone Sarah talked to for almost an hour at a time, late at night, while I was wrestling pipe and praying I'd make it home in one piece. My stomach dropped. That elevator falling sensation, the one you get when the floor kicks and you know you're about to have a very bad day. The air conditioner hummed. Suddenly it sounded very loud. I gripped the mouse so hard the plastic creaked under my fingers. The physical reality of the document, the dates, the times, the duration, shattered something I hadn't even realized I was holding together. I needed to be sure. I checked my phone contacts first, then the family list Sarah had shared through the cloud. The number wasn't saved anywhere, not under any name I recognized. A reasonable man might wake his wife and ask. But I'm a driller. You don't tap a reservoir until you know the pressure. If I asked now, she could lie. She could say it was a wrong number, a glitch, a telemarketer who kept calling back. She could make me feel crazy for even asking. I needed to know who was on the other end of that line. I needed leverage. I opened a new tab, typed the number into Google. Nothing useful, just generic location data. Houma, Louisiana. Big help. I found a paid background check site, one of the legal ones that aggregates public records. My hands were shaking as I entered my credit card information. The guilt was immediate. I was spying on my wife, for Christ's sake. But the suspicion was stronger. The progress bar crawled across the screen, searching public databases. I glanced at the door, half expecting Sarah to appear in her nightgown, asking what I was doing up so late. Catching me in the act of, what, trying to protect myself? The screen flashed. 1 match found. I exhaled. The sound was half breath, half curse. I clicked View Report. The name loaded in bold black text. Derek Fontaine. Address, 4B Pelican Point Apartments, Houma, Louisiana. Derek. I closed my eyes, searching my memory. Sarah's voice from a month ago, chattering about her progress at the gym. Derek says my form is improving. Derek thinks I should increase my cardio. Derek is so patient with me. Derek, the personal trainer at Bayou Fitness Center, the man Sarah paid to touch her, to correct her form, to stand close enough to smell her new perfume. 47 calls. That's not training tips. That's a life built behind my back while I was out there bleeding for this family. The Gulf stretched out like hammered steel under a colorless sky. I stood on the drill floor, feeling the platform shudder beneath my boots as the rotary table churned. 14 days into this hitch, 10 more to go. That crumpled printout burned a hole in my coverall pocket. 47 calls. 47 goddamn calls to a number in Houma I'd never seen before. The derrickman shouted something about pipe pressure, and I waved him off. Handled. Everything up here, I could handle. Torque settings, mud weight, casing depth, numbers that made sense. Numbers that followed rules. Not like the numbers on that phone bill. I pulled my hard hat lower and walked toward the mess hall. The wind off the water cut through my layers, carrying that familiar mix of diesel and salt that usually meant home. Now, it just tasted like bile. Marcus Prejean was already at our usual table, hunched over a plate of jambalaya that had gone cold an hour ago. The man had been drilling longer than I'd been married. 23 years on various rigs, 3 ex-wives, and a pension that got halved in his last divorce. If anyone understood what I was staring down, it was him. I slid into the plastic chair across from him. Didn't say anything. Just pulled the folded bill from my pocket and smoothed it flat on the table between us. Marcus looked at it, then at me, then back at the paper. Jack. His voice dropped low. The mess hall was loud, clattering trays, the TV blaring some sports recap, but he still leaned in like we were discussing state secrets. This what I think it is? Satellite phone. The one I leave home for emergencies. I tapped the column of numbers. These ain't emergencies. He scanned the list. His jaw tightened with each line. 47 calls. Average duration. 47 minutes? He looked up. That ain't a wrong number, brother. No. The word came out flat. Dead. Marcus pushed his plate aside. The jambalaya had congealed into something that looked like engine grease. You know who's on the other end? Not yet. But you got suspicions. I didn't answer. Didn't need to. The name Derek Fontaine had been rattling around my skull since I'd remembered Sarah's voice from last month. Derek says my form is improving. Derek thinks I should increase my cardio. Derek is so patient with me. Patient. I'll bet he was patient. Listen to me. Marcus grabbed my wrist. His grip was iron, same as mine. 20 years of wrestling drill pipe will do that. I know what you're feeling right now. That burn in your chest, like someone's pouring acid down your throat. I felt it 3 times. 3 times, Jack. And every time I did the same stupid thing. What's that? I confronted her, screamed, threw things, made myself look like the bad guy. He released my wrist and sat back. Community property state, brother. Louisiana law will eat you alive if you don't get ahead of this. They'll take half of everything you bled for on this rig. The number hit me like a rogue wave. Half. Half of $412,000 in retirement. Half of the house I'd been paying off for 16 years. Half of everything I'd sacrificed my body, my sleep, my goddamn presence for. So what do I do? Marcus leaned in again. Don't scream. Don't fight. Get a lawyer before you get mad. You need a strategy, not a scene. I stared at the bill. The numbers blurred. I know a guy, Marcus continued. PI out of Houma, Raymond Habert, retired sheriff's deputy. Does surveillance work now? Clean, legal, admissible in court. You want? I can give you his number. Yeah. My voice sounded strange, hollow. Yeah, give me the number. The comms room was empty at 0300. Most of the crew was either sleeping or running maintenance on the lower decks. I sat in the metal chair, the satellite phone receiver pressed to my ear, and listened to it ring. Hebert Investigations. The voice was gravel and cigarettes. Raymond Hebert? Speaking. Who's this? Jack Kowalski. Marcus Prejean gave me your number. A pause. The sound of a lighter clicking. Marcus, good man, bad divorce. What can I do for you, Mr. Kowalski? I told him. The satellite phone bill, the calls to Houma, Sarah's sudden interest in fitness, the name Derek Fontaine, the mileage on the minivan that didn't add up to trips to the gym and back. Raymond listened without interrupting. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. You want eyes on her while you're stuck out there? Yes. That's gonna run you about $2,000 for a 2-week surveillance package. Photos, video, timestamps. Everything documented and admissible. I thought about the joint checking account, the one Sarah had full access to. I've got a separate savings. She doesn't know about it. Can you take payment from that? Cash or wire, Mr. Kowalski. I don't ask where it comes from as long as it's legal. It's legal. 16 years of offshore bonuses she never bothered to ask about. Another pause. Smart man. Most guys in your situation, they confront first and think later. You're already 3 steps ahead. I gripped the receiver until my knuckles turned white. I'm not most guys. No, Raymond said. I don't think you are. I'll start Monday. You'll have a full report waiting when you get back to shore. 10 days later, I stepped off the helicopter in Houma. The sun was setting, painting the bayou in shades of rust and blood. Fitting. The drive to 847 Magnolia Lane took 45 minutes. I used every one of them to rehearse my face. The tired husband, the grateful provider, the man who suspected nothing. Sarah met me at the door. Jack! She wrapped her arms around my neck, and I caught a whiff of perfume I didn't recognize. Something floral, expensive, not the drugstore stuff she used to wear. I missed you so much. Missed you too. The words tasted like copper. The house smelled like lemon polish and something else, something I couldn't place. She'd rearranged the living room furniture again. New throw pillows on the couch, a different set of candles on the mantel. Emma's at a study group, Sarah said, already moving toward the kitchen. I made your favorite, pot roast. I followed her, watching the way she moved, the new confidence in her step, the way her yoga pants hugged curves that seemed firmer than I remembered. Derek says my form is improving. How was the rig? She asked, not looking at me. Same as always. Loud, dirty, long. You work so hard. She opened the oven, and the smell of roasting meat filled the kitchen. I don't know how you do it. I do it for you, I thought. I've been doing it for you for 16 years, and this is what I get. But I didn't say that. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table and watched her set the plates. She chattered about Emma's graduation expenses, the cost of groceries, something about her charity committee meeting. I nodded at the right moments, made the appropriate sounds. Inside, I was running calculations, drilling math, pressure differentials, load tolerances. How much weight could this marriage bear before it collapsed? Tuesday morning. Sarah left for her Pilates class at Bayou Fitness Center. I watched her silver SUV disappear around the corner, then waited 5 minutes. The minivan sat in the garage like an accusation. I started with the glove box. Registration, insurance cards, a few receipts for gas. Nothing unusual. The center console held breath mints, a phone charger, some loose change. Under the floor mats, just dirt and a few stray French fries from some forgotten fast food run. The trunk was next. I lifted the carpeted panel that covered the spare tire well. The spare sat there, dusty and unused. But something about the way it sat seemed wrong, tilted slightly, like someone had moved it recently. I reached into the rim. My fingers touched plastic, a Ziploc bag. Inside it, a cheap black phone, track phone, prepaid. The kind you buy at Walmart for $30 and throw away when you're done. The kind you use when you don't want anyone to know who you're calling. I sat on the bumper of the minivan, the burner phone heavy in my calloused hands. The garage smelled like motor oil and cut grass. Normal smells, safe smells. Nothing about this was safe. I powered it on. No passcode. She hadn't even bothered to lock it. That's how stupid she thought I was. The messages loaded. Derek Fontaine, 2,847 texts. I scrolled. The words blurred together at first, then sharpened into focus. Graphic, explicit. Details about meetups at Pelican Point Apartments, Apartment 4B. Times when I was on the rig. Times when Emma was at school. I can still feel you inside me. Can't wait to taste you again. He doesn't suspect anything. He's too tired to notice. I opened the gallery. 156 photos. My wife. In lingerie I'd never seen. In positions I'd never... I set the phone down, walked to the corner of the garage, bent over with my hands on my knees and dry heaved until my ribs ached. When I could breathe again, I picked up the phone. I took out my own cell and photographed every single text, every single image. My hands shook, but my focus was absolute. Then I wrapped the track phone back in the plastic, placed it exactly where I'd found it, and smoothed the trunk carpet down. The garage door opened. I was in the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face, when Sarah walked in. "How was the gym?" I asked. My voice didn't shake. I don't know how. "Great," she smiled. That same smile she'd been giving me for 20 years. "Derek says I'm really making progress." I'll bet he does. The Waffle House on the outskirts of Houma smelled like burned coffee and regret. Raymond Hebert sat across from me, sliding a manila envelope across the sticky table. "You were right," he said. His face was tired, the face of a man who'd seen too many marriages die. 23 separate visits to Derek Fontaine's apartment in the last 2 months. I got photos, timestamps, the whole package. I opened the envelope. The first photo showed Sarah's silver SUV parked outside Pelican Point Apartments. The second showed her walking toward Building 4. The third showed her kissing him, right there in the parking lot, broad daylight, not even trying to hide it. Derek Fontaine was younger than me, maybe 30. Soft hands, the kind of tan you get from a salon, not from working under the Gulf sun. He wore a polo shirt and smiled like a man who'd never had to fight for anything in his life. "She's been sloppy," Raymond noted. "Thinks you're too dumb to notice." I stared at the photo, at my wife's hands on another man's chest, at the smile on her face that I hadn't seen directed at me in years. "I'm not," I said. Victor Thibodaux' office was all dark wood and leather chairs, the kind of place that smelled like money and bad news. I laid out the financials. The house worth $385,000. My retirement account with $412,000. 16 years of offshore work, converted into numbers on a page. Victor listened, tapping a pen against his desk. When I finished, he leaned back. "If you file now, she gets half. That's Louisiana law, community property." Half. The word burned. "But," he held up a finger, "if we get a post-nuptial agreement first, strict infidelity clause, she forfeits 80% if she cheats." 80%. 80%. You keep the house, the retirement, everything but a small settlement. The question is, how do we get her to sign? I thought about the burner phone, the 2,847 texts, the 156 photos. "We don't make it about divorce," Victor said, reading my silence. "We make it about love. You work a dangerous job. Cables snap. Equipment fails. You want to secure her future if something happens to you out there." The trap crystallized in my mind. Clean, elegant, devastating. "Set up the meeting," I said. That night, I cooked dinner. Pot roast again. Sarah's favorite this time. Emma talked about her scholarship to LSU, her eyes bright with a future she didn't know was about to shatter. I listened, nodded, asked the right questions. Played the role of the proud father. After Emma went to her room, I poured Sarah a glass of wine. "I had a scare on the rig this hitch," I said. The lie came easily, too easily. A cable snapped, missed me by inches. Sarah's hand flew to her chest. "Jack, that's horrible." It made me think. I reached for her hand. Her fingers felt foreign in mine. "If I die, probate will tie up our assets for months. I want to sign a postnup. Guarantee you get everything immediately." I watched her process the information. Watched the calculation behind her concerned eyes. The $412,000 retirement fund. The $127,000 annual salary. All of it, protected for her. She didn't see the infidelity clause buried in Section 14. "Of course, honey," she squeezed my hand. "Whatever you think is best for the family." The family. Right. Victor can draw it up. We'll sign before Emma's graduation party. That sounds perfect, she smiled. That same smile. I feel so much safer already. I smiled back. So did I. Victor Thibodaux' office smelled like old leather and coffee that had been sitting too long. I sat across from him in one of those chairs that look expensive but feel like sitting on a rock, watching him flip through the manila folder I'd slid across his mahogany desk. Raymond Hebert's documentation. 23 visits. 2,847 text messages. 156 photos I couldn't look at twice. Victor read in silence. I counted the minutes by the dust motes floating through the plantation shutters. 12 minutes. 12 minutes of my life condensed into photographs and timestamps, and the careful handwriting of a man I'd paid to document my wife's betrayal. When Victor finally looked up, his face was lawyer neutral. But his eyes held something else. The post-nuptial language is airtight, Mr. Kowalski. He closed the folder with a soft thud. If we can prove infidelity with this evidence, and we can, she forfeits 80%. I nodded, slow, like my neck had rusted. I already knew. I just needed to hear it from someone who hadn't spent 16 years wrestling drill pipe in the Gulf. The timing, Victor said, leaning back. Have you considered? June 1st, Emma's graduation party. He paused, set his pen down. That's public, very public. Are you certain? I thought about Sarah insisting on the Houma Country Club, about how she'd mentioned Derek Fontaine was a member there too, about the guest list she'd been so excited about, 60 people who would watch her world collapse. I'm certain. That night I lay beside Sarah in our king bed at 847 Magnolia Lane. 20 years of sleeping next to this woman. 20 years of her smell on the pillows, her warmth in the sheets, her voice the last thing I heard before exhaustion pulled me under. She scrolled through her phone, laughing at something. Probably Charlene Broussard texting about the party decorations. Sarah had been on the phone with Charlene 3 times today, obsessing over flower arrangements. The ceiling fan made its slow rotations. I counted them. 1, 2, 3. My lower back screamed from the last hitch. My hand still felt the phantom vibrations of the drill, that deep bone shake that never quite leaves. Sarah put down her phone and rolled toward me. Her hand found my chest. You okay, baby? You seem distant. I kissed her forehead. Her skin was warm, familiar. Just tired. The lie tasted like copper, like blood from biting my tongue. Sunday dinner at Mama's house in Thibodaux. The kitchen smelled like roux and andouille and something that used to feel like home. Emma talked excitedly about LSU orientation while Sarah helped Mama in the kitchen. I watched my mother's hands, arthritic now, slower than I remembered, as she stirred the gumbo. Those hands had worked themselves raw raising 3 kids after Dad died. Those hands had signed the loan papers that put me through trade school. Those hands knew hard work the way I knew hard work. Mama caught my eye and held it. Too long. She knew. Mothers always do. You eating enough out there? She asked quietly when Sarah stepped onto the back porch to take a call. Probably Derek. Probably telling him what time she'd sneak away tomorrow. I shrugged. I'm fine, Mama. I'd lost 11 pounds in 3 weeks. My wedding ring spun loose on my finger now. The gold band that had fit snug for 2 decades, suddenly too big for the man I'd become. Mama didn't believe me. But she didn't push. She just ladled gumbo into my bowl and squeezed my shoulder, her grip still strong despite the swelling in her knuckles. 14 days into my next hitch. The Gulf wind carried salt and diesel as I guided pipe into position, my body running on muscle memory while my mind ran calculations. $385,000 for the house, $412,000 in retirement, 16 years of offshore work, 80%. Marcus Prejean appeared beside me during a brief pause, his boots clanging on the metal grating. He handed me a thermos of coffee, and I watched my own hands shake as I wrapped them around the warm metal. "You trying to kill yourself, brother?" Marcus squinted at me through the spray. "That's your third double this week." I hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night since I found that phone. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the messages. "Can't wait to feel you again." Every time I started to drift off, I heard her voice. "Derek says my form is improving." "Just need to stay busy," I muttered. Marcus didn't look convinced. He'd known me 12 years, worked beside me through hurricanes and blowouts, and the kind of close calls that make you religious for about 15 minutes. "You know," he said, watching the horizon, "my cousin went through something with his wife. He tried to handle it alone and damn near—" He stopped, shook his head. "Just saying, if you need to talk." I took a long drink of coffee. It burned going down. "Appreciate it, Marcus, I do." But I couldn't talk. Not yet. Not until it was done. That night in the crew quarters, I sat on my bunk reviewing the post-nuptial agreement on my tablet. The screen glowed in the darkness while the other men snored. Sarah signed it May 18th, 3 weeks ago. The notary's seal was crisp and official. I remembered Sarah's face when she'd put pen to paper, smiling, actually thanking me for thinking about her security. "You're always taking care of us," she'd said in the attorney's office. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Jack." I'd nearly vomited in the parking lot afterward. Sat in my truck for 20 minutes with my forehead pressed against the steering wheel, breathing through my nose, trying not to scream. Now I read the infidelity clause for the 100th time. In the event that either party engages in extramarital relations during the course of the marriage, the offending party shall forfeit 80% of all marital assets. The words blurred. My hands shook. I closed the tablet and stared at the metal ceiling, listening to the rig groan around me like a living thing. 4 more days. Wednesday morning. I called Victor from the satellite phone during my break, standing on the helipad with the Gulf stretching gray and endless in every direction. The connection crackled with distance, static and salt air. "The post-nup is filed with the Terrebonne Parish Clerk," Victor confirmed. "Everything is in order. Have you decided on timing?" I watched the horizon where gray water met gray sky. Somewhere out there, the world kept turning. People fell in love. People got married. People trusted each other. "The party," I said. "June 1st. I want to do it there." Victor paused. I could hear him breathing, choosing his words. "Mr. Kowalski, I have to advise you. That's a very public venue. Your daughter will be present. Family, friends. Once you do this, there's no taking it back." "I know." "The emotional fallout." "I know." Another pause, longer this time. "Then we'll be ready. I'll have the formal papers prepared. You can serve her immediately after the revelation." I ended the call and stood there for a while, watching a supply boat crawl across the water like a beetle on glass. I transferred $41,000 that afternoon. My half of our joint savings moved into a new account at a bank in Lafayette. The transaction took 11 minutes on my laptop in the rig's communication room. My hands were steady for the first time in weeks. I'd already put a deposit on an apartment in Midland, Texas. The Permian Basin operations were hiring experienced drillers. $142,000 starting salary, good benefits, clean start. I wouldn't be in Louisiana when this ended. I couldn't be. Couldn't drive past 847 Magnolia Lane every day. Couldn't see the gym where she met him. Couldn't smell magnolia blooms without remembering what they'd covered up. The confirmation email arrived. I stared at it for a long moment, the beginning of a new life, reduced to a string of numbers and a routing code. Then I deleted my browser history. Old habits from a new war. Sarah's burner phone sat in my toolbox, wrapped in an oil rag that smelled like the life I was leaving behind. I checked it once more before my hitch ended, scrolling through recent messages to Derek Fontaine. The texts were casual now, almost domestic. Client was a nightmare today. 3 sessions and she still can't do a proper squat. Poor baby. I'll make it better when I see you. Can't wait. Wearing the red thing you like. Then Sarah, sending photos of shoes she was considering for Emma's graduation. Which ones for the party? I want to look perfect. The strappy ones. Show off those legs. You're bad, LOL. I kept scrolling, and then I found it. 3 days ago, 2:47 a.m. Sarah to Derek. Once E leaves for college, I'm filing. Lawyer says I'll get the house, half his retirement plus alimony. We can finally be together for real. Derek's response. About time, baby. I'm tired of sneaking around. Just a few more months. He has no idea. He never suspects anything. Too focused on his precious rig. I read it twice. She had no idea. She'd signed her future away on May 18th, smiled at the notary, thanked me for protecting her. And now she was planning to take me for everything, believing she'd get the house I'd paid for, the retirement I'd built, the life I'd sacrificed my body to provide. I wrapped the phone back in the oil rag, closed the toolbox, sat in the darkness of the storage room and laughed, this bitter, broken sound that didn't feel like it came from me. 20 years. 20 years of marriage, and she thought I was too stupid to see. Too focused on my precious rig. The helicopter ride back to shore felt longer than usual. I watched the platform shrink to a speck, then disappear into the gray haze where sky met water. 16 years of this commute. 16 years of leaving and returning to a home that was never quite mine. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, my life measured in hitches and rotations, while Sarah measured hers in visits to apartment 4B at Pelican Point. The other men talked about their plans, fishing trips, barbecues, kids' baseball games. I said nothing. In my duffel bag, wrapped in dirty clothes, was the burner phone. In my pocket, a flash drive containing Raymond Hebert's surveillance photos. In my chest, something cold and patient that used to be my heart. 4 days until the party. Emma found me in the garage that evening, pretending to organize my tools. I heard her footsteps on the concrete before I saw her. Light, quick, the walk of someone who hadn't yet learned how heavy the world could get. Dad? You okay? She was 18 now, tall like me, with Sarah's dark hair and my mother's stubborn chin. My daughter. My real daughter. I'd confirmed it with a quiet DNA test 3 weeks ago, terrified of what I might find, weak with relief when the results came back. Just tired, sweetheart. I set down a wrench I'd been holding for 10 minutes without using. Long hitch. She hugged me. Really hugged me. Arms around my neck, face pressed against my shoulder like she used to do when she was small, and I was her whole world. I closed my eyes, breathed in the smell of her shampoo, something floral, something young. I'm so proud of you, I whispered. Full scholarship to LSU. You did that yourself. Emma laughed. I had help. She didn't know what was coming. She didn't know that in 4 days, her family would shatter in front of 60 people, that her mother would become someone she didn't recognize, that her father would become someone he didn't recognize either. I held her tighter. I protected her from as much as I could. The night before the graduation party, I sat alone on the back porch at 847 Magnolia Lane. Magnolia trees lined the property, their white blooms glowing in the moonlight like ghosts. The air was thick and sweet, that Louisiana summer smell that used to mean home. I held a legal pad with my toast written in careful block letters. 3 drafts crumpled in the trash can by my feet. This version was perfect, warm and loving on the surface, devastating underneath. Every word chosen, every pause planned. Sarah slept upstairs, peaceful, dreaming of a future that didn't exist. I read the toast once more, my lips moving silently in the darkness. 20 years ago, I married the love of my life. Tomorrow, those words would hang in the air of the Houma Country Club. Tomorrow, 60 people would watch Sarah's face change. Tomorrow, I would hand her the envelope containing Raymond Hebert's photographs, and she would understand, finally, completely, that she had never really known me at all. I folded the paper carefully and slid it into my shirt pocket. The magnolias swayed in the night breeze. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. 20 years of marriage ends with applause. June 1st, 2024. Morning light filled the kitchen as Sarah reviewed the catering order one more time. She was radiant, excited, wearing the new dress she'd bought for the occasion. Blue silk, strappy heels, the ones Derek liked. The country club confirmed 60 guests, she told me, not looking up from her phone. And I made sure they're setting up the microphone for toasts. You're still doing one, right? I poured coffee I wouldn't taste. Wouldn't miss it. Perfect, she smiled. That smile I used to live for. The one that used to make 16-hour shifts feel worth it. Oh, and Emma's friends are coming early to help decorate. Isn't that sweet? Real sweet. Sarah crossed the kitchen and kissed my cheek. Her lips were warm. Her perfume was the same one she'd worn on our wedding day. Thank you for doing this for Emma, she said. For all of it. The party, everything. You're a good father, Jack. I set down my mug, looked at her, really looked at her, for what might be the last time as her husband. Anything for family, I said. I meant it differently now. In 12 hours, I would stand before our friends, our family, our daughter, and deliver words that would unravel everything. Sarah would learn that the postnup she'd signed so eagerly, the one she thought protected her, had been a trap all along. She was planning to file the week after Emma left for college. Her lawyer had promised her the house, half my retirement, alimony. She had no idea. The Houma Country Club parking lot was filling up when I pulled in. Sedans, pickup trucks, a couple of those fancy German SUVs that cost more than I made in a year. June 1st, 2024. Humid as hell. The kind of Louisiana evening where the air sits on your chest like a wet blanket. I parked the F-150, washed it that morning for the first time in months, and killed the engine. Sat there a minute, maybe two. Through the glass doors, I could see Sarah. She was arranging centerpieces, laughing with the catering staff, touching someone's arm the way she does. The way she used to touch mine. She looked radiant, happy. I reached into my breast pocket, felt the folded papers there. 3 printouts. 3 text messages I'd selected from the 2,847 on that burner phone. My hands were steady. They'd been steady through blowouts at 3,000 feet, through equipment failures that could have killed everyone on the floor, through 16 years of wrestling pipe and chain in the dark so my family could live in the light. This was just another job. I got out of the truck. The charcoal suit pulled tight across my shoulders. I'd bought it for my father's funeral 3 years ago, hadn't worn it since. Didn't own many suits, never needed them. The fabric didn't fit right anymore. Too much muscle in the wrong places, or maybe too little in others. Didn't matter. Inside, the banquet room glittered. Emma's senior photos everywhere, her smile, her mother's eyes, my stubborn jaw. Purple and gold decorations for LSU. My daughter had earned a full scholarship. 18 years old with her whole life ahead of her. She didn't know what was coming. None of them did. I found Marcus near the bar. My coworker's massive frame was squeezed into a rental suit that looked about as comfortable as mine felt. He was nursing a Coke, watching the room like he was standing watch on the drill floor. "You sure about this, brother?" he asked quietly. I nodded, slow. 16 years I trusted her with everything, every paycheck, every decision about this family. Sarah was greeting guests across the room, her hand touching arms, her smile perfect. That practiced warmth I'd mistaken for love. She was going to take half and leave the week Emma started college. I kept my voice low. Had it all planned. Found the messages on that burner phone. Called me the paycheck. Laughed about how easy I was to fool. Marcus's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists, then relaxed. He'd been through his own divorce, different circumstances, but he knew the weight. "I got the door when you need me," he said. "Appreciate it." Emma found me by the window 10 minutes later. She was stunning in her graduation dress, white with purple accents, LSU colors. My little girl, all grown up. "Dad, you came!" She hugged me tight, and I held on a beat too long. Maybe 2 beats. Tried to memorize the feeling. "Wouldn't miss it, baby girl." My voice caught. She didn't notice. "Mom said you might be tired from your hitch. I'm so glad you're here." "Always, Emma. Always." Across the room I spotted him. Derek Fontaine, the personal trainer from Bayou Fitness Center. He'd come in through the side door, wearing a polo shirt that probably cost more than my work boots. Soft hands. Soft everything. Sarah had told me he was helping with party setup. Another lie stacked on the pile. Sarah glanced at him, touched her earring. I knew what that meant now. I'd read enough messages to decode every signal. A brush of her collarbone came next. "I want you." She did both within 10 minutes, right there in front of everyone. In front of me, in front of our daughter. My pulse stayed even. Almost time. Dinner service began. I sat at the family table, making small talk with Mama. Linda had flown in from Baton Rouge that morning, insisted on being here for her granddaughter's big day. She kept watching me with those sharp eyes that had always seen too much. Sarah was 2 seats away, chattering about the caterer, the decorations, how proud she was of Emma. Every few minutes, she'd glance toward Derek's table near the back. Quick looks, careful, not careful enough. "You seem different tonight," Mama said, leaning close. "Calm." I cut my steak. Precise, even pieces. "I've made my peace with some things, Mama." She squeezed my hand. Didn't understand. Not yet. The DJ announced toasts would begin in 15 minutes. I excused myself, found the restroom, locked the door. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. I removed the folded papers from my pocket, read them one final time. "Can't wait to feel you inside me again. Jack's gone for 2 more weeks. Come over tonight." "He's so clueless, LOL. The paycheck has no idea. We'll have his money and each other soon. Once I file, I get half of everything plus alimony. My lawyer says maybe $3,000 a month. We can get that place in Destin like we talked about." My reflection stared back from the mirror. Weathered. Tired. Crow's feet from 16 years of squinting against Gulf sun. Grease stains in my knuckle creases that never fully washed out. But my eyes were clear. I refolded the papers, washed my hands, dried them slow. This wasn't revenge. This was consequences. I came back to find Charlene cornering Sarah near the cake table. Charlene was champagne loose, giggling, her voice carrying farther than she realized. "I still can't believe you got Jack to sign that estate planning thing," she said. "So romantic that he's worried about protecting you." Sarah's laugh was brittle. "He's always been traditional that way." I watched from across the room. Sarah had no idea. The post-nuptial agreement she'd signed on May 18th didn't protect her. It protected me. Victor Thibodaux had buried the infidelity clause in Section 7, subsection C. Legal language so dense, Sarah's eyes had glazed over when she skimmed it. If infidelity is proven, she forfeits 80% of marital assets. The notary stamp was already dry, filed with the county clerk, legal and binding. The trap was already sprung. She just didn't know it yet. The DJ handed me the microphone. The room quieted. maybe 60 people. Family, friends, co-workers of Sarah's, a few of mine. Emma sat at the head table, beaming. Sarah beside her, perfect hostess mask firmly in place. I cleared my throat. I want to talk about sacrifice. My voice was steady, steady as it had been calling orders on the drill floor through 30-foot swells. For 16 years, I've worked in the dark so my family could live in the light. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Missing birthdays, missing holidays, missing first steps and school plays, and I paused, missing a lot of things. Sarah's smile flickered, something in my tone. On a drilling rig, you trust the man next to you with your life. You have to, because when things go wrong at 3,000 feet, there's no time for second guessing. That trust is everything. Derek shifted near the exit. I saw Marcus move to block the door. Casual. Like he was just getting a better view. I want to talk about honesty. The room was quiet now. That held breath kind of quiet. Emma, you're entering adulthood. You deserve to know what honesty looks like. I pulled the papers from my pocket. In April, I noticed 47 calls on our satellite phone bill to a local Houma number. Calls I didn't make. Sarah's face went still. I found a burner phone hidden in our minivan, behind the spare tire, wrapped in a plastic bag. 2,847 text messages, 156 photos. The color drained from her cheeks, white as drilling mud. I'm going to read 3 messages now. I read them, every word. My voice didn't waver, couldn't afford to waver. This was the job, and I was going to finish it. The room was frozen. Someone dropped a fork. The clatter echoed. Derek bolted for the door. He made it 3 steps before Marcus's considerable roughneck frame materialized in his path. Evening, Marcus said pleasantly. Might want to stay for the rest. I continued, steady as a drilling operation. On May 18th, Sarah signed a post-nuptial agreement. She thought it was estate planning. I looked directly at her. It states that if infidelity is proven, she forfeits 80% of marital assets. Sarah's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Raymond Ebert, a licensed private investigator, documented 23 separate visits to Derek Fontaine's apartment at Pelican Point over the past 2 months. Photographs, timestamps, license plates. I set down the microphone. It's proven. The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. I turned to Emma. My voice finally softened. Baby girl, I'm sorry you had to hear this here. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from it. My throat tightened, but I pushed through. But you deserved the truth before you started your life. You deserve to know what's real. Emma's face was streaked with tears. Her eyes moved between me and her mother, trying to make sense of something that would never make sense. Mama had her hand over her mouth, shaking. I'll always be your father, I said. That doesn't change. Nothing changes that. I walked toward the exit. Didn't run. Didn't hurry. Just walked, steady and sure, the way I'd walked 1,000 drill floors. Jack, wait, please. We can talk about this. Sarah's voice broke behind me. Desperate now. The practiced innocence stripped away. I didn't look back. The parking lot air was thick and warm. My F-150 was already packed. Clothes, tools, my father's old tackle box. I'd loaded it that morning while Sarah was at the salon, getting her hair done for the party. Victor had the divorce papers ready to file Monday morning. The house at 847 Magnolia Lane, the $412,000 retirement account. 16 years of sacrifice. The post-nut protected most of it. I started the engine. In my rearview mirror, I saw Emma burst through the country club doors, searching for me. Her white dress bright against the evening dark. I almost stopped. Almost. But she needed time to process. We both did. and I couldn't explain it right now. Couldn't find the words to make her understand why I'd done it this way, in front of everyone, burning it all down instead of just leaving. Maybe I didn't fully understand it myself. I pulled onto Highway 90, heading west. The Gulf was somewhere out there in the darkness, the rigs running their eternal shifts, men like me wrestling pipe and chain through another endless night. I drove until Houma disappeared behind me. 6 months later, December now, cold by Texas standards, which meant maybe 50 degrees. I stood at the window of my Midland apartment, small place, nothing fancy, but it was mine, watching the sunset paint the oil fields orange and red. My phone rang. I didn't recognize the number at first. "Dad?" Emma's voice. I hadn't heard it in 4 months. She'd stopped returning my calls after the first week. "Emma." I sat down heavy on the couch. "Baby girl." I read everything. Her voice was flat, controlled. The post-nup, the PI reports, Mom's texts, all of it. I waited. Nothing to say that wouldn't sound like an excuse. "I don't forgive you for doing it like that." Her voice cracked. "In front of everyone. Grandma Linda cried for a week. I had to explain to my friends why my father destroyed my graduation party. Do you know what that was like?" "I know, baby. I don't think you do." Silence stretched between us. I could hear her breathing, could picture her face, my stubborn jaw, her mother's eyes, all that hurt she was carrying. But I understand why. The words hit me somewhere deep, somewhere I'd stopped letting myself feel. "I read the messages, Dad, what she said about you, what she was planning." Emma's voice hardened. "She was going to take everything and leave you with nothing, after everything you gave up for us. I should have found another way. Should have. Maybe. Probably." She cut me off. "But I get it now. I didn't want to, but I do." I stared at the Texas sunset, the rigs in the distance, their lights starting to blink on as darkness crept in. "I'm transferring to Texas Tech in January," Emma said. "It's only 5 hours from Midland." My throat tightened. Couldn't speak for a moment. "I'm not saying everything's okay. It's not. Maybe it won't ever be." She paused. "But you're still my dad, and I want to try." "I'll be here, Emma." My voice came out rough, broken. "Always." The call ended. I sat there a long time, watching the last light fade from the sky. The family was broken. 20 years of marriage gone. The house on Magnolia Lane sold. Sarah living with her sister now, the divorce finalized last month. Derek Fontaine had moved to Florida, last I heard, running from something that would follow him wherever he went. I'd won, protected the retirement account, kept most of what I'd earned through 16 years of blood and sweat and missing everything that mattered. But victory felt like this: an empty apartment in Midland, cold coffee on the counter, a daughter who understood but might never fully forgive. I'd done what I had to do. That's just how it is. Some nights, though, when the wind howled across the Texas flats and the rigs glowed like distant stars, I wondered if there'd been another way. A quieter way. A way that didn't leave everyone bleeding. I never found an answer. But Emma was coming. 5 hours away. Close enough to visit. Close enough to rebuild, maybe. One awkward dinner at a time. The thread held. That would have to be enough.